Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to be here. We're going to do a short video today, not a long thing. We talk about this music here. At the end, Gene Harris. Very distinctive sound with 3 sounds. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's just a short video. No, it's not going to be another shootout for the 45 and the 35 RPM version of Kind of Blue. It's been done. A couple of the other vinyl community folks have done a great job talking about that, so I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it. Other than the fact that I've yet to hear an Analog Productions 45 RPM reissue. That wasn't amazing, as is this one. But I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It's great music. You know, we've all seen the unpackaging and everything, and all I can say is thank you so much, Chad, for doing such a great job over at Acoustic Sounds, Analog Productions. Just did a great job. 45 RPM audiophile did a great a video on this. If you want to check that out, the Jazz Bums did a great little talk on it as well. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about, other than maybe a little trivia about the record. This record sold, I think by 1962 it sold about 87,000 copies. I think by somewhere in the 90s, I think there were over 1 million copies sold outside of America. It's a pretty interesting thing. It just sold like crazy, and rightfully so. You know, there's a few things that happened on this recording. I think there's kind of some misconstrusions. Things have been falsely reported that this was done in just one take, and it was not. It was done in multiple takes. In fact, I think Flamenco Sketches, that was a 6th take, and on the reissue recordings, there are 2 takes. So I think the first take, or the alternate take, is really the first or second take, and it's really not that great. It's good, but it's not. The final take, the 6th take, is just awesome. It was done in 2 parts, 2 days, and I think the first day the final product turned out to be just 3 reels of Scotch recording tape, 190 recording tape. Most times records are made, even today, I guess. Of course, not too many use tape anymore, but you know, during that time period, the mastering folks would get 5, 6, 7, 8 reels. Here they only got 3. And it's a credit to the musicians and what was going on there. Just a couple little interesting sidebars about the recording. A couple of the tunes, Freddie Freeloader, I don't know how many people know this, but it's a blues. And it was written for a bartender down in Philadelphia whose name was Freddie. And he made a living on tips and handouts. So, thus Freddie Freeloader. The other interesting aspect on another tune, Blue and Green, which I think is the highlight of the record, frankly. There's a controversy on who wrote that, and you know, it's credited to Miles, but the story is that Miles wrote down 2 chord changes. It was a G major and an A augmented change. and asked Bill Evans what he could do with it, and Evans went home and wrote the tune. But it's an interesting thing that Miles took the credit for it. I think Evans at one time got a little upset about that and demanded some royalties, and Miles wrote him a check for $25, in only the way Miles could do that. There are some cuts that Wynton Kelly plays piano. Two cuts that I think that Wynton Kelly plays on. Wynton, when he showed up to the record date, was surprised to see Bill Evans was there. Was kind of annoyed, but after he heard Bill play, and I believe he stayed to hear Bill play the Flamenco Sketches tune. He was just blown away with Bill's playing. Wynton replaced Red Garland in Miles's band when Miles abruptly, another story, long story, fired Red Garland. Said, "Red, you're out." Wynton's in. Miles had a knack of being quite frank about things. Yeah, so there's just a lot of interesting things about the record date itself. It again is Miles's biggest selling record of all time. You know, and rightfully so. But you know, I've read a little bit about this, and even the other musicians, Jimmy Cobb and Ron Carter, have made comments that Miles really used Bill Evans's ideas for Blue and Green. There's also a lot of thinking that the beginning introduction to So What was actually written by or developed by Gil Evans. And Miles, of course, I don't think ever, to my knowledge, ever publicly gave these guys credit for that. But, you know, it's just kind of the way things are. But needless to say, it's a great recording. One of the things that kind of, in fact, it came up on a YouTube stream this morning that I was on. Kind of blew. It's a great recording, but it's I hate to say this, but in my opinion, and I hope we don't get too many more reissues of Kind of Blue. There's so many other Miles recordings that I think should be reissued. But you know, most of them are on Columbia, and again, Columbia, unless you're Grunman, and I'm sure now Ryan K. Smith and some of the other great mastering people, and Chad Kasem over in Analog Productions. You know, they're it's hard to get the tapes. One of the things I'd love to hear is the recordings of a reissue, maybe even in. I couldn't do it in 45. You'd have to make about 20 records. But the Plug Nickel recordings from 1967, I believe it is, and that's the quintet Miles had with Ron Carter and Herbie and Tony Williams, Wayne Shorter. The Plug Nickel is a club in Chicago. These recordings, I think I've seen some LPs of this. I have one I'm going to show you in a minute. But this is, you know, this is the box set of this. This is the 7 CD box set from the Plug Nickel recordings on Columbia. And superb. There's great playing on here, and it's very different from what you'll hear in Kind of Blue. Really very different from what you'll hear of this other quintet. In that A, it was done live. B, it was done under some funny circumstances. I'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, when this was released, I think it wasn't released. I think it was originally released in Japan. It might even be, it's later than this, later than the recordings. It might even be, I don't know, it might even be I don't know the date, but I think it came out in Japan before it came out in America. It's pretty outside stuff. It's not typical Miles for the period, and I'll tell you why. Nice little booklet in here that talks about the music and the circumstances that it was recorded. This was recorded a few months after ESP, the Miles recording ESP. Miles went through some strange things in 65. I said 67, I'm sorry, it was done in 65. I know that earlier in this year he had hip surgery, had a hip replacement. Then he broke his leg wrestling with one of his kids, of all things. And this was done later in the year. It was done around Christmas time, late December, in a club called the Plug Nickel in Chicago. The story about this, I'll make it quick. The story about this is, this band had been performing live a lot. And if you know the music, they played the same tunes a lot. Autumn Leaves, So What, of course. A lot of the same music, night after night after night after night after night after night. And they were flying to Chicago to play these dates. And I guess the topic came up on how kind of in a rut the band was getting from playing the same thing every night. So Tony Williams, I think, takes the credit for this, said to the other musicians, not Miles, but we need to, next time we play this stuff, we need to play it completely different than we've ever played this stuff before. And when you hear So What on here and some of the Miles tunes, you may not even recognize them right away. But they're intense, and it's an unbelievably creative situation that they did. They didn't tell Miles. They got on the bandstand and started playing like this. Miles just let him go. I think he figured out what they were doing, and it was a result of just being just bored and needing to do something different with the great tunes that they were playing. And you'll hear it in this. They're very, very different. And this set is not cheap if you could find it, but it's just a great thing to have. Anything from the Plug Nickel is, I think it's kind of hard to find. I need to probably look for some other recordings just to have something on vinyl. I do have one reissue on vinyl, and I've listened to this once, and I just dug it out because I wanted to show you all this. I need to clean these records before I listen to them again. But this is a 2 LP reissue. Nice heavy vinyl. This was done in the 80s, pressed in Holland for CBS Records. I'll show you the label here. I picked this up somewhere off of Discogs a few months ago. It's on the CBS label. It was pressed in Holland, not Columbia Records, but CBS. And this one time was property of a library in England, the Northamptonshire Library in England, and they discarded it, and that's what that stamp is on the. I wish they didn't do that, but that's what the stamp is on the center label. It's a deep groove, though. I can feel it, and heavy vinyl. And I played these once, and they sound really good, but I want to clean them again before I play them again. But again, the Plug Nickel is just great stuff and really underappreciated. Yes, Kind of Blue is great, and yes, Porgy and Bess is great, and yes, Sketches of Spain is great. They're all great. But some of this other stuff that Miles did, the Plug Nickel, is just amazing. If you can find it, pick it up. It's really it's just a really, really interesting thing. Again, it's 7 different sets of recorded over 2 nights in this club in Chicago in 1965. So what's playing in the background? The Three Sounds. A CD, folks. Yeah, I listen to CDs once in a while. I have yet to find this on a good recording on vinyl. It's a CD called The Blue Hour with the complete session, Stanley Turrentine and the Three Sounds. Very soulful. This tune that you're hearing here is the fastest tune on the two CDs, and it's only the one, but just great tunes, you know, and very, very soulful playing. Three Sounds, very underrated trio. This is recorded back in 1961, maybe 61, 1960, with a very young Stanley Turrentine. Just great play. Three Sounds, Blue Hour. I am going to look for this on vinyl. Here's a good one, Joe Harley. This would sound great on a reissue, and maybe it's been done. I don't know, but boy, I'd love to hear this on a Tone Poet. Man, this would be smoking. Nice quiet vinyl, would be great. Blue Hour, Stanley Turrentine with the Three Sounds, the complete sessions, two CD set, not hard to find. Just great, beautiful playing. I'm going to sit down and read some night. This is great music to do that too. The obscure record of the day. Then I'll leave you. Jazz for a Sunday afternoon. I believe this might be Chick Corea's, one of his first recordings back in 1967, recorded at the Village Vanguard. It's a jam session. You know, I was about 15 or 16 when this was made. I was not, unfortunately, not there for it. I wish I was. But imagine this band. Pepper Adams on Barry, Chick Corea on piano, Richard Davis on bass, Elvin Jones, Mel Lewis on drums, Ray Nance, violin. Ray Nance played trumpet with Ellington, but played only violin on this record. And Dizzy Gillespie on trumpet. Dizzy just plays great on here. And to make that even better, it's on Solid State Records. Sonny Lester, Solid State. Just a great quality sound, great recording. There's only 3 or 4 tunes on here, 3 tunes. Blues for Max is a 9-minute tune. Lullaby to Leaves, and of course Lover Come Back to Me, 20 minutes worth of Lover Come Back to Me. Jam session in the Vanguard. You know, they used to have a lot of jam sessions in New York, but the Musicians Union, of course, decided that if you weren't getting paid, you weren't going to play. So the jam sessions tended to go away, but this was kind of a bringing back that great jam session situations that we heard oh so well on Jazz at the Philharmonic. But these records are around and they're not expensive and they're recorded well, and I think it's some of Dizzy's greatest playing. And young Chick Corea on Solid State. This was done before he did Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. I think he did Tones for Jones Bones right after this on Solid State. But this was before Chick got famous. And he plays just great on here. I think it's some of his best playing. Jazz for Sunday afternoon. Anyhow, that's about it for today, folks. Please like our channel, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Hit the like button, all that good stuff. And until next time, we'll see you soon.